Okay, thank you very much. So, in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to talk about ideas and activities in very young learners classes for beginners. Well, by very young learners, I mean students under the age of 6. And by beginners, I mean teachers who haven't had too much experience and who are a bit reluctant to walk into a classroom full of 5-year-olds, possibly. I have to say that my ideas are based on my observation in my classes that I have been teaching since January here in Moscow, and on workshops, feedback and support from my supervisors and data sales here. Well, I'm not sure, but I think there is a poll prepared for us that I would like everybody to take part in. Is there? I'm not sure. By the poll, here it is, yes. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, so the poll is about, do you enjoy teaching pre-literate children? Yes, anytime. Yes, if I know them, or no. Let's see what you say. Wow, very good. That is quite surprising that most of the people say yes anytime. I have to say that here in Moscow, it's not really the case. Not everybody likes to walk in or to be thrown into a very young learners class. So anyway, if you have comments on what I'm saying, then please feel free to put your comments in the chat box or use the raise your hand button. So let's start. Thank you very much for the poll. Do I have to do any? Yes, it has disappeared. Very good. Thank you. So, okay, so let's see. What do very young learners, and here I'm just reminding you that we are talking about pre-literate children under the age of 6. What do they not do? They don't sit still, for sure. They can't read and write. They can't give you lengthy answers. They won't use grammar structures, mainly because possibly they are not even familiar with the concepts of past, present, and future in their own mother tongue. They can't really discuss a variety of topics, and they definitely can't work in pairs yet. On the other hand, they do a few things that can be useful in the classroom. They love colors, coloring, numbers, stories, and drawing, just as they do in their L1. They can be very interested in everything that you show them, and they don't mind repetition. So it means that they, if you use a task in the class, it might be repeated a few times in the same class even, or in the following classes. Well, we said that they don't use grammar, but they learn functions, and they use them as well. And although they don't give you lengthy answers, or they can't discuss topics, they show what and how they feel, so you always know. And they always make sure that you react to them. They can't work in pairs, but they seek individual attention. So I think if you bear all this in mind, and we add a few more basic things, then you'll be definitely fine if you're thrown into a very young learners class without much consideration or preparation. Well, here are 4 other things that you need to know. You need to know that a class routine is essential in a very young learner's classroom. It saves times. It means that you don't have to give that many instructions, and also they might not understand your instructions anyway. And it also helps to maintain discipline, which is crucial in a very young learner's lesson. And it gives the children a sense of safety. Yes, and as Marcia says, that it builds a sense of confidence, I guess, both for the teacher and for the children as well. Well, you have to know that they have short attention span, which means that a 4-year-old can concentrate for 4 minutes, a 5-year-old can concentrate for 5 minutes. So if you have a 45 minutes lesson, then obviously you have to prepare possibly more tasks that you do than you do for an adult's class. But again, they might not they might not mind repetition so much. So it means that you can possibly use a task more than once. Now, one more thing is that you don't need too much material. I found that possibly the biggest thing that teachers get disappointed with when they teach very young learners, that they prepare for classes for hours and hours, and then the students don't really appreciate it. If you have a storybook or a few flashcards, then you can get by, definitely. Of course, it's better if you have more than that, but that's the basic. Okay, and the last thing that you need to know is that you will need to use a lot of gestures and movement in the class, mainly to convey meaning. So if you have hidden desire for acting, then this is possibly the time to reveal your talent. Well, a few basic activities in the classroom that can save the day if you're really not prepared to teach very young learners. That can happen many times in IH Moscow. You can always ask them for numbers and colors. They love counting. They love telling you the colors. Look around in the classroom. If you can see objects that they can count. You can introduce them to new vocabulary while they are counting. There are possibly posters on the wall for this reason as well that can be used. If you really run out of things in the classroom, then make them look out of the window and count the cars on the street. They will love it. If you have a storybook, that's fantastic. They love stories. They really, really get into stories. They get very, very engaged, and it can be very interactive with them as well. So you can always ask about pictures and colors. You can ask about feelings, like is the hippo happy, for example. They will love it. With flashcards, you can play a lot of games, so it's always very, very useful to have a set of flashcards. Well, I don't think I have to say much about miming animals, because it is always fun, possibly even for us, for teachers. It's a good basic to play charades, for example. And I would say that I found that using rhythm and melody in the classroom to teach new vocabulary is very, very efficient. They get the stress, they get the intonation, they remember better, and they have fun. What we use here is that when we teach new vocabulary, we ask them to use different sounds and voices. For example, I say this as a cat, or say this as a lion, or say this as a grandmother, even. I have made a handout for you, and I have listed a few easy activities that don't need much preparation. And I would just like to say 2 very short sentences on miming and mimicking and chanting. Mainly about mimicking, that anything you do in the class, thank you, Sandra, by the way. So anything you do in the class, they copy it. So it's good to assign a gesture, for example, new pieces of vocabulary. They will remember and they will use it, and you can recycle it later as well to play charades, for example. With chanting, songs and chants, if you know songs that list words of one certain topic, for example, Old MacDonald's had a farm, then you can always change the topic. You can change the list of words. For example, if you're teaching numbers, for them, then you can sing the song with numbers and animals as well. Last but not least, I would like to add two more things. One is on literacy and one is on art and craft. On literacy, exercises can be adapted, so don't panic if they can't, well, don't panic because they can't read and write. Because most very young learners, course book exercises can be adapted, possibly not like you don't have to ask them to read out sentences, but you can read out the sentences for them, and they can match, they can point, they can actually do the exercise. If you make tracing, handwriting tracing handouts for them, they love that. They love writing. It's possibly their first encounter with writing, especially in English. Here in Moscow, it's especially crucial as they write with Cyrillic alphabet. They love and they're really proud of themselves when they can write. It helps their motoring skills as well. On arts and crafts, just two more things. It's that one thing that you have to bear in mind, that they can be same level, same age, but they can differ very, very much in pace. So you have to be prepared for some kids who are much faster, do some gluing, and some kids who are much, much slower than the others. Also, an arts and crafts activity has to have an aim in class, which means that we all know that arts and crafts is a great time killer, but you have to make them use the language as much as they can. For